This is an audio recording of To Kill a Mockingbird, the abridged version, by Harper Lee. Chapter 10. Atticus was old and feeble. He was nearly 50. Jim and I were disappointed that he wasn't more like the younger fathers in Macomb. Atticus was always too tired to play football with Jim like the other fathers. He wore glasses because he was nearly blind in his left eye. When he gave us our air rifles, Atticus wouldn't teach us to shoot. Uncle Jack taught us and explained that Atticus wasn't interested in guns. Atticus said to Jim one day, "I'd rather you shot at tin cans in the backyard, but I know you'll go after birds. Shoot all the blue jays you want, if you can hit 'em. But remember, it's a sin to kill a mockingbird." Later I asked Miss Maudie why Atticus said that. She said, "Your father's right. Mockingbirds don't do one thing but make music for us to enjoy. They don't eat up people's gardens. They don't do one thing but sing their hearts out for us. That's why it's a sin to kill a mockingbird." I complained to Miss Maudie that Atticus was too old to do anything. "Well, I don't call 50 old," she smiled. She said that he was a great lawyer and the best checker player in town, and I should be proud of him. One day, Jim and I were walking down the street with our new air rifles, and Jim spotted something. "What you looking at?" I asked. "That old dog down yonder," he said. "That's Harry Johnson's dog, who's named Tim Johnson, ain't it?" The dog was acting strangely, and Jim got worried. He called to Cal to come out in the street to look at the dog. When Calpurnia saw the dog, she was sure it had rabies. She called on the telephone to Atticus's office. "Mr. Finch, this is Cal. I swear to God there's a mad dog down the street a piece. He's coming this way. It's old Tim Johnson." Then Cal called the operator and asked for her to call Miss Rachel and Miss Stephanie Crawford and anyone else on the street to warn them to lock their doors and stay inside. It is very dangerous for anyone to be bitten by a dog with rabies. Mr. Heck Tate was the sheriff of Macomb County. He showed up with his rifle. Atticus showed up as well. The dog was pretty far down the street, but it was headed toward the Finch's place. Atticus told Heck that he better go ahead and shoot the dog, put it out of its misery. "He's looking for a place to die," he said. But Heck handed the rifle to Atticus and said, "Take him, Mr. Finch." Jim and I couldn't believe it. Heck wanted our father to try to shoot. Atticus said, "Don't be silly, Heck. You shoot him." "Mr. Finch, this is a one-shot job." Atticus shook his head vehemently. "Don't just stand there, Heck. He won't wait all day for you." Heck said, "For God's sake, Mr. Finch, look where he is. If I miss, the bullet will go straight into the Radley house. I can't shoot that well, and you know it." Atticus replied, "I haven't shot a gun in 30 years. Mr. Tate almost threw the rifle at Atticus. "I'd feel mighty comfortable if you did now," he said. Jim and I watched our father take the gun and walk out into the middle of the street. He walked quickly, but I felt like I was watching the whole thing in slow motion. I couldn't understand why the sheriff would want Atticus to do the shooting. Atticus pushed his glasses to his forehead. They slipped down and he dropped them in the street. In the silence, I heard them crack. Atticus rubbed his eyes and chin. We saw him blink hard. With movements so swift they seemed simultaneous, Atticus's hand yanked a ball-tipped lever as he brought the gun to his shoulder. The rifle cracked. Tim Johnson leaped, flopped over, and crumpled on the sidewalk in a brown and white heap. He died instantly. Atticus had shot him right between the eyes. Mr. Tate said, "You haven't forgotten much, Mr. Finch. You're still a great shooter." Miss Maudie yelled across the street, "I saw that one-shot, Finch." Jim was totally stunned. So was I. Mr. Tate saw our shock and said, "What's the matter with you, boy? Can't you talk? Didn't you know your daddy's—" Atticus interrupted. "Hush, Heck. Let's go back to work." After Atticus and Mr. Tate left, Miss Maudie filled us in. "Forgot to tell you that the other day that besides playing the Jew's harp, your father was the deadest shot in Macomb County in his day." When I asked why he never goes hunting, Miss Maudie said, "If your father's anything, he's civilized in his heart. Shooting is a gift of God, a talent. Oh, you have to practice to make it perfect, but shooting's different from playing the piano. I think maybe Atticus put down his gun when he realized that God had given him an unfair advantage over most living things. I guess he decided he wouldn't shoot till he had to. And he had to today. I said, "It seems like he should be proud of his talent." Miss Maudie replied, "People in their right minds never take pride in their talents." I didn't understand all this, and I told Jim that we sure would have something to brag about at school on Monday, now that we knew our dad was the best shooter in Macomb. But Jim told me not to say anything at school. He seemed to think that bragging wasn't so important anymore, that it wasn't a very grown-up thing to do. He said, "Atticus is real old, but I wouldn't care if he couldn't do anything. I wouldn't care if he couldn't do a blessed thing. Atticus is a gentleman, just like me." It seems Jim realized that a gentleman doesn't brag about his talents and doesn't use his talents to take advantage of other people or animals.